Hi witches! I want to start off today's video by saying a super huge thank you to Haley and Victoria who joined my Patreon this week. I seriously could not do this without you guys. Thank you guys so much. And to all of my patrons, thank you so much for sticking around for another month. I am so stoked. We have some really exciting stuff coming up, most notably the full moon ritual. Now this is exciting, so stay tuned for sure, definitely. So the full moon is August 11th, but I am going to be traveling that day. If you guys don't know, I work in a tattoo shop and there is a tattoo convention that I'm going to be working at. I don't tattoo myself, but I help my boss when she travels to conventions sometimes, which is really fun. And it's also just like a super cool opportunity for me to see parts of America that I've never seen before. So I'm really stoked. But I'm going to be traveling. I'm driving halfway across the country with my boss and like some buddy comedy road trip on the 11th. So we'll have our ritual on the 10th. The spell that we're doing can be done in preparation for the full moon. So I wanted to make sure that you guys could still celebrate on the full moon. It is always a wonderful time when we get to gather together. So thank you for making that possible. So let's hop into today's topic, which was actually suggested by one of my patrons. So today I wanted to talk about cleansing magic and my top 5 methods of cleansing. Now I feel like I have talked about this before. I definitely have deja vu. I feel like I've talked about this before, so if I have made a similar video, consider this a review session. I looked through my content and couldn't find anything that I thought was like exactly like this video, so I'm probably just losing it a little bit, and that's fine. So today I want to go over my top 5 methods of cleansing my sacred space and hopefully can inspire you as well. So my number 1 way of cleansing my sacred space is smoke cleansing. I do that the most. I actually have some incense burning right now. I don't know if you guys can see that. Hello. But I really love using frankincense incense to cleanse my space. It is not only purifying, it is also very protective. So you're kind of doing 2 things at once. And as a Virgo, I love efficiency. You can also make smoke cleansing wands or smoke cleansing bundles by binding fresh herbs and waiting for them to dry. And this is something that I think that a lot of people overlook because a lot of witchcraft has become a little bit more commercialized. So you can totally go to your metaphysical store and pick up a smoke cleansing bundle. I do recommend staying away from white sage as it is endangered and also part of a closed practice. Same thing goes for Palo Santo. There are tons of other herbs that you can use. You can use them from your garden. That is just like a wonderful accessible thing to do. But personally, I like to get my herbs straight up from the grocery store. So you can go to the grocery store at your produce aisle, and generally there is kind of like a refrigerated herb section, at least where I am. I'm not sure if your grocery store is different, but I like to pick up a little bunch of fresh rosemary and a bunch of fresh common sage. You can bind those together with just some like twine. I use cotton thread, and you can match the color of your thread to any sort of intention that you want to set. A little tip. But I will bind those up, wait for them to dry, and then use those to cleanse my house. So it's like a fun craft. It is super affordable. I think they are only like $1 or $2 each for like the little packets. There is some plastic waste, which kind of sucks, but I did find that going to farmers markets, I was able to find fresh herbs and stuff like that. So grocery store when things are a little bit off season, and then when it is warm outside, herbs are growing and thriving, I like to go to farmers markets, support local farmers as well. So double awesome. Now some pros to smoke cleansing, definitely aesthetics. I am not gonna lie, I love the way that smoke cleansing looks and it makes me feel. It makes me just feel like I'm commanding my energy. It is pretty financially accessible. Incense for me costs like at most $5 and they have multiple sticks of incense in them. And then of course those herbs are only $1 to each, or you can grow your own. So very accessible in terms of price. And personally, I like this method the most because it has like kind of a visual aid, which is like I can watch the smoke and I can visualize my space being cleansed. And also I do feel kind of a physical shift in energy whenever I do smoke cleanse my house. I feel a lot more relaxed. I feel a little bit more at peace. And also my home smells amazing. And I think that there is something to be said about the kind of environment that you're living in affecting your mood. So yeah, smoke cleansing. Now, some cons for this method is that it is not necessarily pet friendly. I tend to only smoke cleanse my sacred space because reptiles, and I have a snake, they don't really do super well with like lots of smoke around them. So we try to make sure that I keep the smoke cleansing away. It's not always, like I said, pet friendly. Maybe cats and dogs, it might irritate them. If you have asthma or anything with your lungs, also not a great method for you. So that is a con if that is something that you can't necessarily do. I would also say that this method is not necessarily super friendly to maybe novice practitioners or witches who can't practice openly. When I was in high school, I got a bunch of incense at the Renaissance Festival, purely innocent, like my parents paid for it for me. I lit some in my room, had the window open and everything, and they like burst in and were like, "Are you doing drugs in there?" I was not doing drugs in there. I was reading about witchcraft, but for some reason, drugs seemed less incriminating to me. So I was like, "Oh, you can search my room," and was just like terrified that they were gonna find my witch stuff. They didn't that time. Anyway, it still put me into a situation in which like I was on the verge of being discovered. And if that is something that is going to be unsafe for you, I never want you to put yourself in danger in order to practice a spirituality, especially when there are other methods that are a little bit safer for practitioners who can't necessarily be super open about the witchy things that they do. One of those methods, in fact, is sound cleansing. So that's our next one, and it's my second favorite for sure. Sound cleansing I use a lot of the time in tandem with other more physical cleansing practices, I guess. So the good thing about this is that there are no tools that are necessarily required. If you're on YouTube, you can find some really cool, relaxing music. The other cool thing about this method is that not only can you use it to cleanse your space, but also to kind of raise a certain sort of energy to aid you in your workings that you might be doing later. So if you are doing a baneful working, maybe putting on some angry sounding music. If you're doing more of a healing working, maybe something that you would hear at a spa, right? Another really great exercise that I recommend to everyone is making your witchy power playlist that will help you kind of get into that ritual headspace if that's what you are interested in doing, or just helps you kind of connect with your spirituality whenever you do feel like practicing. And it's also just, I feel like music is so emotional, and it's something that can really change the vibe, I guess. And to really connect with the music, maybe the lyrics, can really aid your spell work because you are starting to then take on that emotion, and it helps you kind of tap into those emotions that are often needed for successful spell work. So yeah. Now, if you are one of those witches who does not like to use electronics when they practice, again, I totally understand that that's not everyone's bag. You can instead use clapping or drumming on various surfaces. If you have a drum yourself, that can be a great way to stir up energy. I think that is really a great way to connect back with some of our ancestral roots, because, you know, they didn't have iPhones where they could just like play music. They had to make it themselves. So if you are perhaps musically talented, maybe consider writing a song or playing a song that you really like that, you know, gives you the sense of being cleansed or makes you feel happier or just raises energy, right? And that is completely personal to you, of course. Now, the pros of sound cleansing, the things that I really like about it is that it is super accessible. There are really no tools needed. Again, you can seriously just raise energy or cleanse your space by clapping really loud, talking, making noises, and just really sending out those vibrations into your space. These vibrations then stir up the energy and kind of move all of that negativity out. So you're filling this space with creativity, with vibrancy, with energy. And I think that is so beautiful. Also, I think is a really great method for witches who maybe aren't able to do other cleansing methods, because it is kind of like conspicuous. Like you could just be like, hey, I'm just playing a playlist, or I just really like this kind of music. And most people aren't going to question you beyond like, what are you listening to? And you can just be like, oh, you know, it's like folk music or it's rock music, like whatever that explanation is. Now, in terms of cons for this method, sometimes I do have a hard time focusing when I am like distracted by music or if I'm just getting really into the song. So if you have problems focusing, sometimes this is a little bit distracting. And if you share space with somebody else, like if you have a roommate or maybe your family is a little bit like judgmental about that kind of stuff, sometimes maybe playing a witching playlist at full blast might draw some unwanted attention. So just keep that in mind. But those were just some of the things that I thought about. But overall, I really love sound cleansing as a method, and I like to use sound cleansing in tandem with a lot of the other methods that I use, such as smoke cleansing, or such as the next one, which is cleansing with moon water. So moon water, as you know, is an infused water. It is water that is left out usually under the full moon, but you can make it during any phase of the moon. I really like to make new moon water, to be honest with you. So this could be infused with protective or cleansing herbs, crystals, and salts as well in order to kind of amplify it. However, if you just wanted to put some water out under the light of the moon, perfectly fine, very cleansing and very powerful, right? Now, because I'm a hedge witch and I am really into using herbs and plants and connecting with plant spirits in my practice, I tend to infuse fresh herbs and various things with my moon water. So I will charge it the night before under the full moon, usually during ritual with you guys. Then the next day, I will take some fresh rosemary, some fresh lemon slices, some sea salt, and some vinegar, add that and my moon water to a like reusable glass spritzer bottle. I got it at Target for like 10 bucks. And I will use that to kind of mist my space. So it's kind of the same idea of smoke cleansing, where the smoke is kind of clearing out any negative energy. But in this case, it is water-based. So that kind of eliminates that, smoke sensitivity for people who have asthma or maybe people who have pets. It is also a really great method for adding your intention. So you can take literally like a piece of paper, write your intention on it, add it to the bottle, just make sure that you can get it out when you are cleaning everything up. So the pros of this method, again, it is very accessible. If you have access to running water and the light of the moon, you can do it this way. It is also very aesthetically pleasing, to be honest with you. I love making this sort of infused water. It makes me feel very witchy. It really makes me feel like I am putting in the work in order to get something out of it. So it feels, it makes me feel a little bit more connected to my practice. This is a really great method for beginner witches as well as people who can't necessarily practice openly, just because, again, it takes really a few tools and there aren't too many steps. It's not super complicated. So hopefully it is a little bit more approachable if you've been nervous about spell work. And also this method is awesome for cleansing objects. So if you have certain crystals that are water safe, or jewelry, or certain things in your practice like tools that you want to cleanse before using, which I absolutely recommend, then using moon water to cleanse or maybe even charge some of these objects, fantastic method. And then my cons for this method is, again, not everything in your home is water safe, so I would not like spray electronics with moon water to cleanse them, or certain crystals that you might have will kind of break down with water, so you want to make sure that they aren't getting wet. And yes, while for the most part that just kind of means that they're going to dissolve if they are like left to sit in water, I don't really want to risk that with some of my gorgeous crystals, right? So yeah, that's like the one con I have for this method. Number 4 on my list is using crystals. My 2 top recommendations for cleansing crystals to have around the home include selenite and clear quartz. Those are the main 2 that I use. I'm sure there are more out there, absolutely. I personally like to place them above my door frames so that they cleanse the energy of people who come in and out of the room, especially over the door of my sacred space, because I don't want anything like negative just messing with my stuff. I also keep pieces of selenite on all of my tarot decks, just like I keep them on top, so that way they are cleansed of any energy. If I am having like a rough day and I'm doing a reading, I don't want those emotions to hang around on my deck. So I will use a little piece of selenite, cleanse it, and then just leave it on top to, like, I say it's marinating, but I feel like that's not right. But I let it marinate until I'm ready to use it next. I also really feel like this is a super great low energy method of cleansing. I kind of call it the set it and forget it method. I like to cleanse my crystals during the full moon, but there are some people who are like, well, it's already a cleansing crystal, so you don't really have to. I'm gonna leave that up to your discretion. It makes me feel better to cleanse all of my crystals and then put them back. I just feel like reset and ready, if that makes sense, but that might just be me. So if you are feeling a little bit more low energy, or you're looking for some easy ways to kind of incorporate witchcraft into your daily life without tons of effort, placing crystals with various like intentions or various energies throughout your home is a great way to cultivate kind of like this field of like peace, of cleansing, and to protect yourself from negative energy. So yeah. Some pros for this method include, again, they are very aesthetically pleasing. I know that might be a silly thing to include in like my pros, but I really love that witchcraft can be so beautiful. Not saying that other religions aren't beautiful, but I feel like in my life, if I am going to have something physical and actually functional, I want it to be fashionable as well. So I'm always looking for beautiful stuff that also works really well. So the other pro that I have for this is that these crystals are relatively easy to find. You can find clear quartz in pretty much every crystal store. I would say the same thing for selenite. Now the cons are, they're not always super cheap, though tumbles are. Like if you're looking for the little ones, they work as well. So you don't need to be spending all this money on these huge towers or spheres and stuff if you're just looking for some basic cleansing and protection, in my mind at least. Depending on where you put some of these crystals, they might be noticeable to other people, so that might invite in some questions that you may not want to have to answer. So if that is something that you are worried about, maybe finding some discreet places to put them around your house. I used to like hide stuff behind the books in my bookshelf. But I like secret places to put things. I think that's very fun. And the other thing that I thought about whenever I'm placing crystals, or at least try to, is that they might be dangerous for pets and babies, like as in they might be a choking hazard. So just be careful where you are putting things, make sure everyone's safe, and put crystals on everything, let's be honest. Okay, and my final one is probably the least magical, but I think one of the most effective ways of stirring up energy in your home, and that is to physically clean it. So I find that whenever you change anything up, whether that is just, so I find by physically cleaning your space, you are physically getting rid of like dirt and grime negativity, as well as whenever you change anything in your house, I just feel like it invites in a new flow of energy, which can be positive. So I really recommend just doing, even if you're just tidying up, taking the cups from your bedroom to the kitchen, beautiful. And it can take baby steps. Like my therapist used to just recommend like one corner of my room one day and then the next corner of my room the next, especially on days when I did find it super hard to take care of myself. But it's a great way to use other cleansing methods as well. So you can also pop on that power playlist that you made and maybe do some smoke cleansing, maybe using some of that wonderful moon water that you made. I also really recommend, if you can, to open up your windows and let in some fresh air. Let that element of air come into your space and just make it bright and fresh and clean. And also it like invites in new opportunities. Keeping your windows open while you cleanse also gives the negative energy a place to escape to. So I recommend it no matter when you are cleansing. Have like a window just cracked or have like your door open if you can. Some pros for this method. One, you end up with a clean house, and as a Virgo, love that. But also you get to engage in witchcraft as well. So it's just like mundane and magical coming together to make a beautiful thing happen. It is super good for your mental health. You know, I often hear like a messy home is a messy head. I definitely know that when my space is really cluttered or really chaotic, it makes me feel very anxious. So I totally get that. It is also a really great method for witches who maybe aren't able to practice openly because no one's going to really question you as to why you are cleaning your bedroom or wherever your space is. And it is pretty accessible. You don't necessarily need a whole lot of tools to do this method. In terms of cons, I totally understand that cleaning in general is a very hard thing for people sometimes, like when basic self-care is difficult. I have been there. I totally get it, you guys, and I'm really proud of you for waking up every morning and doing what you can. So if you are dealing with like chronic physical pain, mobility issues, or maybe just like mental health stuff, I totally get it. And in no way do I ever want to come across like I am shaming people who maybe can't keep up with organization or anything like that, because again, I have been there and I totally get it. Do what you can, okay? Take care of yourself, please. But anyways, those are my top 5 favorite cleansing methods. I would love to hear how you cleanse your space if you would like to share with us. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.